Hi, welcome to Preps Plus Podcast, episode 24, brought to you by Sterling Auto Group. I'm Joshua Hart, sports editor here at the Daily News. I'm here with Jason Leskiw, Preps reporter.
Hey.
We're here to break down our four remaining football teams. Last week I said I figured we'd have a few stick around. I didn't think all four would advance. So yeah, congrats to the local teams going 4-0 last week in the state quarters / state first round. So we still have Kalama, Toledo, Rainier, and Nacelle. So we'll break that all down, as well as Jason has an interview with Toledo quarterback Duke Schaplow midway through this podcast. So we'll try to keep it somewhat short today, run through those four teams real quickly after giving you a long one last week. And we'll go from there. Sound good, Jason?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll start with Kalama Chinooks. What a test that was they got in the state first round against Adna. My gripes last week about those teams not meeting in the first round were certainly justified, because Adna shouldn't be sitting at home right now, because they played a fantastic football game. They pulled to a 12-0 lead. Kalama came back. Then it was back and forth. Alex Dyer made some, just spectacular throws. Adna's swinging gate, odd front, fourth down formation, went 4 for 5 with 2 touchdowns. Adna drives the length of the field, scores a field goal late, and big stop there from Kalama. I think Corbin Burns probably in on the tackle.
Who else?
What a player he is. He comes in on the tackle on third down in the goal. In the red zone, I think is on the 4-yard line, and pushes them back to like the 9. Adna kicks the field goal to tie it, but that definitely could have gone a totally different direction the way Adna was driving the ball, like no other team has driven the ball on Kalama this year. Then, of course, in overtime, we have almost a mirror image to the Napavine game earlier this year. Alex Dyer makes something happen on the first drive, finds Max Ross in the end zone. I know Napavine or Adna fans were griping about possible push-off, but on the video it just looks like the guy's running into him, and he kind of does like a swim move without kind of barely touching him around him. Otherwise, it's a defensive pass interference, and definitely didn't think that was that controversial of a call. And then a couple plays later, Country, they call him Country. Quentin Cruz gets his hand on a ball and pops right up to Jacob Hers, who could probably have a sip of coffee and catch that ball. So he comes down with it. Kalama wins, and our number one team is still alive. Now they have a much easier opponent, or so you'd think. Yeah. PL Willapa Valley comes to Kalama this Friday. What's your thoughts on that one, Jason?
I got to see PWV against Toledo early in the season, something like week 3 or so. They're a good team. They're not a team that can keep up with Kalama, in my opinion. That said, playoff football is a different season. Players bring a different mentality, and I expect it to, still be a 2-score differential or something like that, rather than a 5 or 6-score differential as we've seen with numerous Kalama opponents this season.
Yeah, I think last week's going to really prove as a wake-up call to Kalama. Yeah. You have to look at this team. They haven't had a real significant test since week 2. There was Wakaikum's a strong team, but certainly didn't have the firepower to keep up with Kalama. Toledo's a strong team, as you can see they're in the state quarters, but certainly not the firepower to keep up with Kalama. So Napavine and Adna were 2 of the teams that can challenge Kalama, and maybe Liberty on the east side. And I think they went down 12-0 early, and they woke up, and I think this is going to make them refocus and say, we're not guaranteed a spot in the state finals. We may be number 1, we may have beaten Napavine in week 2, but we're not guaranteed anything come playoff time. So I think that will really wake them up. Another thing they have going for them is Alex Dyer is having a fantastic season. Some of the stuff he's been able to do has just really wowed me. Last week he had a pass where it was almost very Russell Wilson-esque, right? It's like he's rolling out, he like pump fakes, he drops back, he's kind of scrambling away from these defenders, and then he just lofts a ball straight down to the sideline to Tucker Wetmore. He has just been stellar this year. I mean, you've got to see him. What are your thoughts on the junior quarterback?
He is terrific. I mean, you could really sum it up just in that one sentence. He's able to make numerous throws, and I think the one thing that really helps him the most is that the defense, the rest of the offensive unit allows him to kind of sit back and play his game, his type of football, and I think that's the one thing that really has allowed him to have such a successful season. And I also think that's one thing that if I'm any Kalama opponent that I'm trying to affect the most. I mean, but again, on the flip side of that, Adna had him down early. They were playing from behind. It was a jab, swing, or whatever boxing match going all 12 rounds. So he's the type of guy you couldn't. There's a lot of talent on that team. There's a lot of people. I think you could say, that this one guy is the heart and soul of a team. But I think when you look at everything, he's the one that you wind up with eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think about a year and a couple months ago, he was in a quarterback battle with Tucker Wetmore. Mm-hmm. And to see them both blossom into their respective roles has been fantastic. That shows the coaching staff made the right decision a couple games into last year, and both of them have really, really grown. Tucker as a wide receiver and Alex as a quarterback. So certainly going to be interesting this week to see. I would imagine them fairly easily dispatch PWV and possibly set up a rematch with Napavine in the state semis. Of course, Toledo will probably have something to say about that. You like that transition? Pretty good.
I do. And another rematch for Toledo.
Yeah, they rematched last year's state semifinals. Toledo versus Napavine. State quarters should be really interesting. Toledo, despite fumbling the ball 4 times, a continuation of their woes in that aspect of the game this year, dominated Concrete pretty through and through. You think about a 28-0 win and you lose 4 fumbles. Mm-hmm. Junior Arroyo obviously comes up with a big pick 6 that pretty much seals it in the 4th quarter, and they're back facing Napavine. You were up at Toledo practice today, Jason. What is Toledo feeling right now? Obviously, this time much bigger underdogs than they were last year.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because on paper, yeah, they're underdogs, but I don't see it necessarily the same way. I think that and this has been their Achilles heel, is the fumbles. If you remove fumbles from really any game this season, I think they go toe-to-toe with anybody. They fumbled 5 times against Kalama. 3 or 4 of those were deep in their own territory, where it was just a putt for a touchdown. And if they don't, and they still only lost by 3 touchdowns. Any other team that allows that with Kalama, the Kalama second team or third team is in the game, by halftime, and it's a long trip home, whether it's by bus or by car. But Toledo managed to stay, kind of afloat in that one, and so I think if they don't fumble the football, they can go heads up with anybody, which is crazy in a sense, given that they've lost a lot of talent. They're on the 3rd string quarterback in Duke Schaplow. Their first 2 quarterbacks go down, with non-contact injuries. Gannon Medill, their 2nd string backup, goes down with a broken finger on Friday the 13th. It's just like that's been their season, is just these crazy instances. So though they might be the underdog on paper, I wouldn't be that shocked to see them come away with a win.
It's certainly going to be, the weather's looking like, though, it may be tough to hold on to the football. So,
Yeah.
Maybe similar weather to that state semifinal game last year. But I have to say, regardless of the outcome in this one, you have to give it off to both these teams for the amount of talent they lost. One of these teams is going into the state semifinals. Mm-hmm. That says a lot about, Josh Fay up at Napavine and Mike Christensen in Toledo. Their quarterbacks gone, their linemen gone, the best defensive players gone, and yet they're both right in this. It speaks a lot to those teams, and it speaks a lot to the Southwest 2B League. Mm-hmm. On just how talented this league can be. I personally think Napavine wins by 2 scores. I got to see them up in Napavine against Kalama in week 2, and I've heard they've gotten better since then. They have just a incredible defense, real quick, similar to last year, except, you obviously take away Austin Philly out of that, but real quick, I think Toledo will be able to run the ball a bit. I don't see him getting more than a couple scores, and even though I like Toledo's defense, I don't see them, if their offense is only scoring 14 points, which I predict, I'm not seeing them be able to score, to hold Napavine to less than that. So I imagine it'd be low scoring, but that's what we thought about Adna Kalama, right? And that ended up being a barn burner. So certainly interesting. That, of course, is at 7 p.m. Friday at Tiger Stadium in Centralia. Jason will be there. You can follow him at J Leskiw TDN. I will be at the Kalama game, 7 p.m. Friday in Kalama. So you can follow me at JT Hart 23. And now's the perfect time to jump into that interview with Toledo third-string quarterback and now starting quarterback Duke Schaplow.
I'm here with Duke Schaplow, quarterback for Toledo, third quarterback for Toledo this season. Yep. We'll just get right into this. What was it like stepping into that? I know Sunday night, after the Saturday where it was discovered that Gannon had broken his finger. And talk to me about how that first night, knowing you were going to be the team's starting quarterback, was.
It was quite the surprise, actually. But I've played quarterback in middle school as well, though. So my middle school coaches have taught me the dive series and such, like with the cowboy step and straight down the line. So it was the initial shock, but then almost immediately, the next day, I was like, all right, I got this. We can do it, because I trust our very, very veteran line and our backs. We have 3 very threatening backs in the backfield, so I knew I could just get the job done.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it is definitely comforting, especially playing behind Eaton and Robinette. I mean, those guys are huge, and especially Robinette for his size is
yes.
Clearly incredibly strong.
Being a senior, that helps a lot. I played with Hunter Eaton in middle school as well. I was a running back at that time, running behind him, so I was looking for 75.
Okay. Got it.
I trust him.
All right. And obviously, running a wing tee is helpful. You guys aren't airing it out 40 times a game. How has the process been? Learning the playbook, learning some of the small things, whether it be exchanges or, I don't know if you check out of plays or not, if you have that option, but how have the mental aspects gone?
So the toughest part for me was just getting the message with the backs down, because I've studied it, because I was watching the plays and I had my own wristband as a running back before this, and I knew most of the plays, so that wasn't the problem. The problem was just the mesh with my backs, timing, passing routes and stuff like that. So.
Okay. And you guys probably, for our area, I think, run the most successful wing tee. Obviously, your guys' defense is exceptional. You guys got an exceptional offensive line, but the total production you guys get out of your offense with Colby, Ethan, and Keaton, averaging about 100 yards a game this season. And I know that's been the goal for any three backs, but how easy is that, or how much easier, I guess I should say, has that made this process?
Very easy. It was actually one of my first thoughts to kind of calm myself down when I first learned it, because I thought just give my backs the ball, keep the train moving in the right direction. That's what I was thinking.
Okay. How much growth do you feel you've made as a passer over the last couple of weeks?
So I've been working really well at it, but we're still working the kinks out, of course, and I feel I've grown pretty well though in the past few weeks.
Okay. And your dad was telling me he's been running a lot of routes in the backyard.
He has. I feel like I've grown a lot in the passing game, and especially knowing my wide receivers and just getting to know the varsity guys even better now. That really helps.
Okay. How nice is it now? Is it any more gratifying when the defense makes a big stop? I know sometimes you're a part of the defense,
Yep.
as most 2B, schools have, mostly two-way players.
Yep.
Is it more gratifying to see that now in this role?
A large defensive stop?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Especially like the fourth downs, 4th and 1. Austin Crawford's had, I think, 2 picks this year. Those are one of my favorites, just because he just kind of shifts back there and gets them, and then that really fires up our offense as well, which is what I really enjoy, having that defensive mentality that we can score and stop them again and score again.
Okay. You guys just shut out a team that hasn't been shut out all year in Concrete. Ilwaco had been shut out only one time prior to 2 weeks ago, excuse me. So you guys, the defense in particular, is really playing lights out. And I know sometimes a shutout doesn't always, there's a shutout, and then there's really intense defense that, that as Concrete found out, clearly
Yep.
only allowing 34 rushing yards for the first half, was it?
I think, yeah, it was 34 yards, and then like the 4th quarter, I think they had one large run, which put it up to like 76 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to also look at the leagues as well, because Concrete, don't get me wrong, they ran their offense very well, but they just haven't really seen up our guys up front like that, large Hunter Eaton and Cody Towns and guys like that. Tough to stop.
Right.
Very tough to stop.
Right. Well, then also, having two towering outside linebackers.
Flanagan Jr.
Right. Yeah, that DN outside linebacker position. How has your perception of those two guys changed in the last couple of weeks as a quarterback? Also, being that they're so massive, I know that there's still a lot more to an offense than having massive receivers. But how has the relationship with you and those two guys changed over the last couple of weeks?
There goes one of them right there.
Yeah.
I've really come closer to both of them, and I've kind of, like you were saying about their size, I've realized how much more athletic they are, because I feel like if I can get it up in their zone, there's not really too many DBs that they can't jump over.
Right.
If I place that ball correctly, so I have a lot of faith in those two.
Okay. These guys here, you guys, I know you probably have some bitter memories or not so fond memories of playing these guys from last season. How much does a game like this against Napavine mean to you personally?
It means a lot, because I think it's like 2 in the last 3 years they've knocked us out of the playoffs. And we're just, Napavine and Toledo are pretty decent rivals in just about every sport.
Right.
That's kind of progressed throughout the years, past 5 years or so. So it means a lot to me and to our team, because they're a really strong, competitive, athletic team every year, consistently.
Right. The Central 2B is, in my opinion, and I think the majority of people's that have paid attention, opinion, the toughest league in Washington. The parity is crazy. All the teams are just exceptionally talented. It doesn't matter if it's basketball, baseball, football, soccer. How knowing that and coming into the postseason, I know you'd probably rather not play a Central 2B opponent, given how good the teams are. But how much of a boost does that give you and give the team in a postseason situation?
Definitely a large boost because it's that small town rivalry. We have tons of respect for these guys because they're a great football team, and it's a lot more fun to play one of your local rivals than it is to go way up north and play a team you probably haven't even seen before. That's another benefit. Is a lot of these teams, Central 2B teams that we've played, have played other teams, so we can kind of look at matchups and stuff like that, which definitely helps.
Okay. All right. So final question. How overjoyed would you feel to get a win this Friday?
It'd be amazing. We're really just happy to be here with all the adversity we've had to overcome these past few weeks. So it would be a really, really amazing thing to get a victory this Friday night.
All right, excellent. Again, here with Duke Schaplow, quarterback for Toledo Indians, heading into a playoff match against Napa Vine. Winner goes to the state semifinals, and a repeat of kind of what we've seen the last couple of years with the Indians hoping to get the better end this year. All right, and we'll go back to Josh and I.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're back breaking down the final two teams. Thank Duke Schaplow for sitting down with Jason up at a wet and windy Tiger Stadium tonight. But we'll jump right into Oregon football. Rainier Columbians took a long road trip, 8 hours.
I can't believe they did
432 miles. What's more impressive that after driving 432 miles, they picked up 511 yards.
Yeah.
I feel like coaches' philosophy, like, hey, if we get more yards than we got miles on the road, we're going to win this game. So they just pounded number 3 Nissa. And this is a team that is insanely motivated by a loss to Klatskanai in Week 8. Mike King called it the best thing to happen to this team this year, and coaches don't like to say that about losses too often. And they have a quarterback who's pretty motivated because the Lewis and Clark All-League team does not have him as the first team or as the All-Area Offensive Player of the Year, despite picking up an insane amount of yardage and touchdowns. That honor is split between Dawson Carr and Cooper Blodgett. So nothing against those two guys, but what Joey Tripp has done this year has been absolutely insane and stellar. He is intensely motivated. Rainier is intensely motivated. And they go up against a number 2 Santiam Christian team who looks every bit the part of a title contender. But the number 11 ranked Rainier Columbians look like that too, behind a diesel offense that Chris James says we're going to pound it down your throat and make you like it. That's bold words from the lineman. They know what they're going to do this week. Mike King wasn't giving on much about they'll probably try to even it out between the spread and the diesel, but against a somewhat smaller but speedier Santiam Christian team, if I'm Rainier, I'd go diesel. So that'll be interesting. I would like to see a number 11 team make the state. It's crazy. The last 2 years, or last year, there was a number 12 team that made the state championship. So,
and there's nothing better than having a reason, especially a quarterback, but for any position, having a reason to say, "Oh yeah, watch me," like Tripp has right now.
Yeah, they have so much talent on that team. I was looking at their linemen, talking to about their linemen to Mike yesterday at practice, and he says, "Yeah, we got a lot of big guys." He said, "How big is Easton Crate?" This kid's 16 years old. He's a sophomore. 6'5", 265 pounds. He has like 12 sacks on the year. Is just a beast on the offensive line. That's a line that they're going to grow with and continue to get better, and really impressive Rainier front that they can use you have three pretty athletic dudes behind him with Carr, Tripp, and Jacob Bruce. So very interesting in that one. I will be down at that game Saturday morning in Hillsboro. Jason, you're going up to Montesano High School for a 1 p.m. game. Nacelle versus perennial power Elmira Cooley Heartline, who seems to always be the team to beat out of the east side. What are you looking forward to in that game?
Well, I'm looking forward to a solid performance in the defensive backfield for Nacelle. I think that's going to be the key. 8-man football, it's its own animal, and those safeties, the corners, they have to make the same kind of tackles that the linebackers do, but then they also got to cover 40, 50 yards of grass. And the thing that Nacelle has on their side is they have the athletic ability to do that maybe better than any 1B football team in Washington. Just the speed and also the hops. I can't believe we talked last week about Donnie Edwards and kind of the fact that he's been playing this season with an injury, and so I watched him against Toledo maybe about 5 weeks ago, and the kid's jumping. He's got 3 feet under him. The kid's not 6 feet tall, so 5'6", right? He's got 3 feet of air underneath him when he jumps up, and you just can't find that anywhere, it seems like. And so when you have something like that, a guy that can control that kind of area, and Cole Dorman's been lights out at quarterback, so I think if I'm Nacelle, I'm throwing the ball 70% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, they do have Antonio Nolan's really come on for Nacelle in the backfield as well, and Eric Lund, and I'm going to butcher his name, but they have another running back there, Faasu. So they definitely have a lot of weapons. And last week I picked against Nacelle, against Nia Bay, because it's hard to gauge Nacelle a lot of time because they're not going up against the competition. Yeah. But Nia Bay's been a power in the state for a long time, and they were just completely dominated. I'm going to still pick ACH this week, but I think we'll see just how much that Sunnyside Christian game did for Nacelle and how much that showed what the talent is out there, because ACH, they've only lost to the number 1 teams. Now we have 2 teams at number 1. They lost to Odessa and they lost to Sunnyside Christian. So this is a very good Elmira Cooley Heartline team. And I think if Nacelle learned something from that game, that Week 9 game against Sunnyside Christian, it'll show up this week. What they have going for them is it is on grass, and Jeff Eaton loves his big boys and getting on the grass field and just moving the ball. So they have that going for them. I still think ACH has the advantage, but you can't count Nacelle out. They got a lot of athletes, like Jason said. So that'll do it for our coverage plans this week for all of our football games. We're also pretty excited. We're starting to put together our Preps Plus basketball magazine. We got our cover photo approved and checked off and good to go. R.A. Long alumnus and Roots Academy guru Scott Pasapia will be on our cover, so we're really excited about that. It's a great cover photo by Bill Wagner. Really exciting. So we're getting started on that. First winter sports questionnaires came in today. We're excited about winter season, but we're going to try to finish fall strong and with these 4 football teams this week, and hope you enjoyed the breakdown of the coverage. Again, thank you to Sterling Auto Group for sponsoring this podcast, and we'll see you next week.